Hello, Anita. Welcome to the Work Podcast.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. There's so much to get to, but first, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time. Thank you for all that you do and for showing up and being the embodiment of a powerful Black woman. I have to say, I always open up my Instagram. You're the first post that comes up, and I just get the energy and the power and the feeling coming through. So, whatever you're doing it right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Such an honor to be here.
Speaking of your Instagram and being a powerful Black woman, at least that's the energy that I get. Have you always been on that journey, or what was the road like into getting into the space where you are talking, you're speaking, you're writing, and sharing stories on your platform?
Yeah, I would say I'm a powerful Black woman. I'm a soft Black woman. I'm a sensitive Black woman.
Mhm.
I'm, I'm all kinds of different types. And it's been a journey. I've had, all kinds of experiences. And for me, the reason I'm on this journey of helping to heal Black women is because I feel that Black women are God. I feel like Black women are divine. And, my experience in the world around Black women, I feel so loved. I feel so cherished, like held up. And when I see the way the world treats Black women, it's like the opposite, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And so for me, I'm like, listen, I bow at the feet of all of the Black women in my life. I do whatever I can to help, and it's not even to help. It's like just to be there so I can see them shine, right? And my example of that is my mother, and just the way she has been there for me and my sisters. um, the way she has shown up. She looks in the mirror ever since we were younger. She looks in the mirror and she's like, I'm so gorgeous, right? Like, and we have little signs around that says Black is beautiful. So
Mhm.
we never felt like we were not beautiful until we kind of went out into the world and was like, oh, not everyone feels that same thing.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So when you grew up and you had all those affirmations that told you and showed you who you were, and then the world told you something different. I mean, how did you change that into, okay, now I have to show other Black women that this message outside of this is wrong, that the white supremacy is loud and wrong. Like, how did you decide to shift that?
Well, that was a long journey, my friend. I, I guess I was very young when I was getting those messages. And so I internalized those things and I didn't feel beautiful. And I, wanted to change so many things about myself. And I was insecure, especially in my teens. I was very insecure. And I would say, I remember it was interesting because I was modeling at the time, which was funny because I thought I was so ugly, but I was like making money modeling. So it was ironic. And then I remember going to a job when I was around 20 and they were straightening my hair. And I saw the smoke going out and I was like, they're burning away my Blackness. That's what I kept feeling, right? Like, I'm like, they're
Oh,
burning away
wow.
my Blackness. And so the next day I went home and I locked my hair up and I was like, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. Right. Like, I was like, and I like called my agents. I was like, I have locks now. I don't know if I'm gonna get any jobs anymore. And they're like, oh, okay. And it was all good. I still got jobs. It was fine. But I was probably the only, like, not the only, there was one other model and actress at that time that had locks because this is a long time ago. I'm a lot older than I look. No, just kidding. And so that I think that was the process of really, really, really remembering who I am and the people who I surrounded myself around, and my close friends. It was this journey of, we were surrounded by beautiful, beautiful Black people, right? Like just surrounded. And so my experience was this. And then we hear all of these other things, within the world, where I'm like, this is not my reality, like I don't know whose reality they're sharing. And so from there, I ended up being the editor-in-chief of Heart and Soul magazine, which is a national magazine for Black women in health and wellness. And that was probably the first big platform I had to really share health and wellness for Black people and for Black women. And I was doing retreats, and I was doing events, and I just fell in love with it all.
I
Is
love
that
that.
how you got into your spiritual journey? I mean, you might have already been tapped in, but I saw that you're also a spiritual psychologist, and I don't know, I get the vibes that you are already tapped in and tuned in.
So yeah, it was I guess I've been, as far as like a spiritual journey, it's interesting saying that because it's just been my journey of life. I've seen spirits and ghosts since I was young. And then,
Ooh.
yes, since I was little. And I had, I'm excited. I'm going to get to it. But I had a realization about last week, which is interesting because I've never thought about it. But I've seen spirits since I was young. And when I was 18, I started hearing voices. And so I got nervous because I'm like, all right, like, am I going crazy? And this is what I always tell people now, if they are hearing voices, well, what are the voices saying and when do they come? Like really paying attention to it, because for me, I did that, right? I asked myself, okay, what are these voices saying? It was all negative things, right? But when I listened to what they were saying, it wasn't anything that I thought as a person, right? And because I remember one was like, I'm going to kill my parents. That has never crossed my mind.
Right.
And then I realized that I would hear the voices when I would walk past people, right? I wouldn't hear them when I was by myself. So I'd walk past someone and I would hear the voice and then it would go away. And I'm like,
Oh wow.
Wow.
hearing what people are thinking, right? Like I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute here. And so I'm 18, right? I'm young, no discernment. So I start asking people, right? So I was at UC Berkeley. I was on my way to class and I hear like someone crying in class. And I'm like looking, nobody's crying, right? And then I get something happened to them 3 days ago. They're going to be okay. So I turned to the girl. I was like, something happened to you 3 days ago. You're going to be fine. And she was just like, her eyes just got big. And I like was overwhelmed and I left class. Right. And my friend told me later that the girl was like, how did Anita know that? Apparently her girlfriend cheated on her
Mhm.
um, 3 days before, but the girlfriend was sitting next to her. Right. Like, and I didn't get that. Like, they didn't give me that information. Right. So I, it's like, okay, so I get home and there was so when my sister went to Berkeley, she was friends with a lot of the homeless community. And so there was this homeless guy that was standing outside of our house, and he was like, hi, and he's like talking and smiling, and all I hear is, I don't know where my wife and kids are. And I was like, I know you don't know where your wife and kids are. And he grabbed me and he was like, what do you mean? How do you know? Where are they? And I was like, no, I heard you saying. He's like, I didn't say that. And so I finally get away from him and I like run into my house and I run upstairs and I like pray to God. I'm like, please, can you take this away? I don't want this. If this is supposed to be a gift, I don't want this. Send me something that I can handle. I can't handle. And I woke up the next day voices were gone, and I had this dream that I was throwing rocks and giving people readings, which at that time I didn't know was connected to my Nigerian ancestors, but I did not know, I didn't know practices and things like that. And so I started doing that for people. And so kind of had, like I had a lot of people that would come for readings and I would throw rocks. I don't need anything now for readings. I can just have someone's first name and I could give it. But back then that's
Wow.
how it started. I would throw rocks. And what happened, the reason I ended up getting my master's in spiritual psychology was because um, people just kept coming. And it was almost like, to me, it felt like they were coming for the show, right? Because they were like, well, how do you know that? And how do you know that this is gonna, how did you know that? Just not understanding how. And I'm like, um, okay, well, what can you do to use that information to change your life or shift what's happening? And there wasn't any of that. It was just all like wanting to know what's going to happen next.
Mhm.
And so that's why I ended up getting the spiritual psychology. So bringing in the whole work.
Mm.
It reminds me of the way that we are in the collective, we are in the space of misusing different medicines and from the plant and fungi kingdom, right? And there's no integration. So there's no one to say, how are you going to use this now that you have this? So you are basically a fungi, right? You are like, right? Your gift is a fungi and you are like helping people integrate.
Mhm.
Something you said though I wanted to touch on. So you mentioned locking your hair as a way of grounding yourself in your blackness, especially in the industry that really works hard to erase, right, who we are. And it reminded me of the story of Medusa. And I remember I'm from Maryland originally, and I just gotten my hair twisted from the wonderful women that used to do my hair before COVID. Um, and I was in the Whole Foods and I was talking to this beautiful woman who had long, beautiful locks, and I referenced them as dreads. And she explained to me why that was a problematic word and the history of the word and the history of Medusa. And if you guys don't know the history of Medusa, she was believed to be an African queen or goddess who had what we were told were snakes in her hair, but actually were potentially locks, right? And there's a story of potentially a pouch and her having a pouch of snakes. And there's a lot of like things lost in translation. But I would love for you to talk about the connection to history and our stories and our ancestors and how that's helped you co-create create your book and
Yeah,
your main character. Yeah.
absolutely. I love how you brought up Medusa. But the book that I wrote is Shallow Waters, and it's about Yemoja, who is a, a Yoruba deity of the ocean from Nigeria, and she's a black mermaid. And well, she's depicted as a black mermother usually, but how I've imagined her in this is a coming of age story. And um, basically, Yemaya was said to watch over the enslaved Africans as they came over the Middle Passage, and she watched over the ones that jumped or were thrown over, watched over their souls, and really watched over us as we went over. And I'm saying us, but our ancestors are within us. and and so what I did with this story is that I imagined her as a 17-year-old before she knew that she was a goddess. And it takes place in the 1800s and starts on the west coast of Africa. And she falls in love with the fisherman. So it's like that the mermaid story where the mermaid falls in love with the fisherman, but then the fisherman is taken by the slave ships. and taken on the Middle Passage. So she follows underwater, and when they get there, I'm not going to tell the whole story, this is just the beginning, but when they get to the new world, she has to cocoon for 40 days and 40 nights. And so she loses him. So the whole book is about trying to find her love in this place where her skin color makes her a slave. And it's a very it's it's an intense, deep story because there's a lot of historical figures in there. It's, I would say, educational in that sense. I have characters that people would recognize and characters that they wouldn't. And so, because I wanted to introduce some that people hadn't heard of. And and basically, oh, I forgot. Okay, I'm gonna continue with that. But what I realized when I said, oh, I figured something out about the spirits that I was seeing, um, because while I was writing Shallow Waters, I wasn't seeing any spirits, right? Like I was channeling with Yemaya, right, writing, but I wasn't seeing the regular ones that I usually that I see around me. And what I realized is that I think that the spirits that I've seen my whole life have been characters from my books. Because I'm like, what are the rules on the other side? I have no idea. But I know that the last spirit I saw before I started writing this was a slave woman, an enslaved Black woman in one of my friend's houses. And so I started to think about the spirits that I've seen, and I'm like, what if they have this whole time been the characters, like, hey, Nita, like, we're waiting for you. I don't
Wow.
know, but when I said it, it felt so right, you know? And
Wow.
so I just feel like that all of the mythology and the storytelling, there's such medicine in storytelling,
Yes.
because then people are able to take from it what they need, right, at that moment, and someone else needs something else, you know? So it's just such a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful medicine, storytelling.
And like what an allegory for our experiences as humans now, right? Like we are living in these bodies and we're sort of coming of age and we haven't realized because of white supremacy who we are. And so hopefully we're all coming of age and standing in our own divinity.
That's right.
But also, Britt and I both want to read your book, by the way, because I just love the mythology behind it and the like legend and the mythic lore behind it. But how much of also presenting a black mermaid in waters, right? Because water is such a spiritual element, and the fact that so many black people are afraid of water
Mhm.
because of the ancestry, right? And I know a lot of my black friends don't even know how to swim. So,
Yeah.
how much of that was also taking the power back of being in the element of water?
Exactly. So the woman who wrote my foreword, Dr. Velma Love, she was pointing out the many different reasons that Black people have a fear of water. So not only is it from our ancestry of coming over on the Middle Passage, but she's from the South, and during that time, if Black people went in the swimming pool, they would drain the swimming pool, like there's just so many traumatic experiences that people have had with water. And so that reconnecting with water, and mine is opposite, because my mom is from St. Kitts,
Mhm.
and you know we're in the ocean and the water all the time. And so it's a bit different from what happened in the States, because there was more of a fear of water, where I think, in St. Kitts, it's like we became fishermen, we became, like everyone is like by the water, in different areas of the Caribbean. And so the healing of the waters, because, you know, water is emotion, water is spirit, water washes us. There's so many amazing things with water that I love that you asked that question, because I do feel like this is a healing of the waters. I was in Martha's Vineyard this summer, and there was a huge group of Black people in the Atlantic Ocean and
Mm.
chanting and doing these like
Wow.
movements.
Wow.
And so I filmed them, and then I also put it next to a video of an art installation that represented ancestors that were were thrown into or decided to jump into the ocean, into the Atlantic Ocean, because I felt like those chants from the people in Martha's Vineyard were healing the waters, the Atlantic
Oh, wow.
Ocean. And it was so powerful. I was like,
Wow.
Yeah.
yes, let us heal our relationship with the water.
Wow.
Wow. I have chills on my body.
Yeah.
Well, also
Wow.
the title of your book is Shallow Waters, right? But really where we need to get to collectively is deep. You know, it's much deeper. It's like going to the soul and essence of who we are as people.
Yeah,
Um, I can
absolutely.
go on and on about water symbology, but I just wanted to ask you too because whenever I read books, and there's so many amazing Black authors who I've read, there's always the water element, the element of water that's introduced as almost like this mythic lore of, um, that somehow it helps transcend time and space as well. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of Water Dancer,
The
um,
water dancer. Hmm.
and how water was introduced in that book as well. And anyway, I just had to ask because there's a common theme there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure. I love it. I love that there's so many themes of water. I know for me, one author that has been a huge inspiration for me is Octavia Butler.
Hmm.
Mm,
She did Wild Seed and Kindred and so many more. But just having Black science fiction for me as a young person was so important, especially with the type of person I was, seeing spirits, and you know, I would be called strange a lot, like,
Hmm.
even though, like, it was interesting because people would accept me, but then it's like, oh, she's kind of weird though, And so I love now that there's just so many people that are weird. It
Yes.
doesn't, like it's really not a thing anymore. Like I wouldn't say normal, but
Well, Harriet Tubman also got hit on the head and she received visions, and there's some level of mysticism. I
yeah,
think that was the point I was trying to make. There's a
yeah.
level of mysticism around and like spirit around all of you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
when you talk about hearing voices and receiving these messages, um, I feel like when you juxtapose that with at least the typical American experience, right, where Black Americans often grow up in Christian households, um, and so to be able to hear and receive guidance or voices, it can be controversial and uh, really scary for some. Did you ever have those moments,
Yeah,
or
right. I was raised Christian, so I was actually very scared because I was, taught that basically that was demonized, and
yeah?
so when I was scared to tell my mom, but I finally did, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm giving all these readings to people, and I tell my mom everything anyway. And I told her, and I was really nervous, and she was like, honey, everything that comes out of you is from God. Don't you worry about
Ah,
any of that. And
Aw.
so Oh yeah. Thank God, right? Like I was like, thank you, Mom. Because there were a couple people in Berkeley that were calling me a demon because they were like, there's no way that you could know the things that you knew, even though they
Oh,
came
wow.
to me for a reading. And so um it was such an interesting time. That was like my coming of age.
Mhm.
And luckily my mom allowed herself to open up. My family, like, I mean, like you were saying that you feel like there is that spirit around so many Black people. It's like, even though we're raised Christian, like my whole family, like they have dreams when things are going to happen. They have dreams that, when someone's pregnant, they dream of fish,
Mhm.
like there's all these things where they're super connected. My mom would always know who was calling before caller ID. She'd know who was calling and why. She'd be
Oh,
like,
wow.
like she just knew and she would say it. We'd be like, how do you know that? And she's like, I just
Wow.
know. And so, she would connect us with our intuition. And then my dad, who's white, he was super connected to he still is super connected to his intuition in the medical field. So he's a doctor and he's an anesthesiologist, and you know, um he would connect to what was supposed to happen before it even happened. And like, he'd be like, okay, like, like he would know what to do. And then I guess everyone would be like, how did you know to do that? And he's like, I didn't know. And they're like,
Mm.
what do you mean you didn't know? Like they couldn't tell. And so I feel like I've been super blessed to be connected to a white man who is so connected,
Mhm,
and he's,
mhm,
my parents uh, knew that they were raising us as Black women, that, like you come into this world, not into, in America specifically, you're going to be a Black woman if you have Black in you, and
mhm.
so it wasn't like this thing of, oh, I feel like you're erasing me when you don't say you're mixed, because it doesn't feel right for me to say I'm mixed. I feel like a Black woman, but I also um honor and honor that everyone sees everything as different, but that's what I feel I am.
Mm.
Are you sure you don't still hear people's thoughts? Because you answered two of my questions, my next questions, as I was thinking them.
Are you serious?
Yes, I
Okay,
was
well,
going to ask you
constantly, I'm not.
about your roots with your father and that connection to it, and how you identify, and that white supremacy says you come into this world as a Black woman if there's any bit of Black in you, right? And how you felt about that and how you identify and how you use that to break down some of these stereotypes and connect with both groups if you do, and what
Wow.
that looks like. Yeah, but you just
Wow.
answered it.
We don't even need to ask the questions.
I know. You can just
I
have the
love
floor.
it. I love it. Oh my goodness. And what's
Wow.
so interesting is that when I was in Berkeley, and whenever an Asian or a Black person would come in for a reading, the ancestors would always come first. Like they would
Really?
be like, you can feel, I don't even know how to explain it, but it just feels like, vroom,
Mhm.
right? And then
Wow.
like settle, like, oh, they're protected, right? Like it's
Mm.
just like, I could feel it so strong.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure why, those two particular groups would be so strong, but it would just be like, boom, and
Yeah.
then let the reading commence, right? Like,
Wow.
and I just wanted to say that while I'm here, because it's just like, oh yeah, you all protected
Mhm.
Wow.
by your ancestors, which I'm sure you know already.
Yeah. Thank you for the
Well,
conversation.
yeah, I know. I was gonna say we talk about this a bit, and I actually have a couple of questions that maybe I'll ask you offline about ancestors and what that means, and but we'll I guess I'll ask you about it offline. But I want to know a little bit more about the process of birthing such a beautiful book that shifts the way we think about history and our stories, in a time where it's really needed, right? Everything is so shaky and tumultuous, and it's vibrating, and I don't know how to describe it, but I can sense the sensation, right, of the energy around us. And you created such a beautiful story. I mean, what was that process like?
So the process, so I everything was divine timing, divine timing. The whole process, including I'm including like 2 years in there of like oh, what is it when you writer's block? Oh my god, like I had a block, a thinker's block just now. But so the whole process was about 7 years, and including those 2 years of writer's block, and and so as I was writing it, I didn't necessarily know that the timing was perfect, right? It was just whatever Yemaya was telling me to write. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let me just, listen and do it. And it's very much the process of going in deep. Like you said, Laura, like that we need the deep waters, right? Like going in deep, allowing it to come through. And then I was done with it when like 2020 came along, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the time that it's for. Right? Like I was like, it has to come out right now. And so I was just like, oh my gosh. And so I was like trying the process of getting a publisher, but I was like, oh no, they're not going to move fast enough. This needs to come out now. So I started the process of self-publishing. And I had gotten editors, I got a cover, an ISBN number, and I was in the process. And my best friend Yadi went to the ocean, and she asked Yemaya, what do I need to do in order to get this book out to as many people as possible? And she is friends with Charlemagne, and she was like, the ocean was like, send it to Charlemagne, right?
Wow.
He had no idea that Charlemagne was coming out with an imprint under Simon and Schuster at that time, right? So she was just like, called him and was like, you need to read this. And he was like, okay, right? 2 days later, he read it in 2 days.
Wow.
He called me
Wow.
and he was like, do you have a publisher? And I was like, no. He was like, I want to publish this. And I was like, okay. And so, what we didn't know was that he was creating Black Privilege Publishing, which is why I have Black Privilege on my Instagram. And he was creating that under Simon and Schuster and Atria. And he first put out State of Emergency by Tamika Mallory, and then put out Shallow Waters. And the way that it had the way the book and I have been held through the process has been absolutely beautiful, like just divine, I would say. And so I thank Yemaya for that. And there's if whoever is listening, if you do feel like you want to thank Yemaya in any special way, she is the goddess of the ocean. So you could go to the ocean and you can talk to her. You can throw 7 pennies out to her. You can put molasses in the ocean for her. Those are some of the things that she likes. So if you're feeling like you want to honor her in any way, she's super excited because she feels well, she was telling me when we were writing it that her daughters are rising. And
Oh,
so
wow.
so I just feel like it's happening. I've gotten so many beautiful messages from people who have been reading it and feeling like they're remembering who they are. The funniest thing, some woman's husband sent me a message, and he was like, he basically he was like, I think she had a book that she wanted to figure out how to publish, and it was just cute. Like he was sending it, and then he was just like, "You're out here." What did he say? You're out here. making Black women think they're everything. And I'm like, that's right.
There's so many parts of what you just shared that I wanted to touch upon, but I think when Britt and I were talking before you came on, I said I'm just such an intuitive person that I didn't exactly know why I wanted to talk to you, but now I figured it out because you and I figured out, I guess, that you were a Gemini.
Yes, you did.
Your form of resistance, your form of change is through channeling spirit. So in this case, it's Yemaya, through your writing to empower other people to remember themselves.
Ashe. Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
and to trust the divine timing of how the universe brings it together. And literally, it could not have been a more flow, easy way that your book got published.
Right, the publishing part. Now getting to that part was not as easy. I went through so many things, and and putting so much energy into this, and wondering, am I crazy? Right, because I'm doing it while I'm doing other things, while I'm a psychologist, while I'm editor-in-chief of a magazine, right? So then, like, anytime I have any free time, while I'm a mother of three, right? And and I was putting in so much energy, and like right before I had decided that I just need to self-publish, my sisters and we have a call every Sunday. Five of us do. There's seven of us, but there's two that are a little bit younger, but the five of us basically grew up together, and the five of us have this call. And I just broke down. I'm like, I don't think this is ever gonna happen. Like, I was like, I feel like I put all this work into this, and why? What is it gonna happen? And we pulled a card, and why the frick was the card a black mermaid, first of all? And it said, oh, what did it say? Stay positive. Hold on. I have to find what it said, because it was so powerful. And it literally said that don't worry, everything that you're working on is happening in divine timing. And I took a picture of it. I'm gonna see if I can find it. If not, don't worry, I won't like take too long trying to find it. But I just, at that point, I was like, all right, thank you, goddess, thank you, God. I am going to take this message, but I can't find it right this second. But it was a black mermaid, and basically was telling me that it's going to happen,
Yeah.
don't worry.
What deck is this that has a black mermaid? That's awesome.
It's called Mermaids and Dolphins by Doreen Virtue.
Okay.
And it's like a sweet little deck. I gave it to my daughter, and it it was literally talking to me, and it was a black mermaid. So I was just like, okay, I'll take it. So it gave me the faith to keep going.
Yeah. By the way, we are huge fans of Charlemagne's. If you're listening, hi. Uh, and I love
Good
that.
work.
I love that he named his imprint Black Privilege, and I, I'm curious to hear like what is your definition of Black privilege, because we always hear white privilege.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, which is interesting that you said that you feel like there's spirit around a lot of Black people who are around you. Um, is to me, the Black privilege means connected to spirit, and that is our privilege. And a lot of times it's been demonized, and there's been so much to disconnect us from our original spirituality. And for most of my life, if someone's talking about African spirituality, it's completely demonized.
Yep.
And so to me, Black privilege is our connection to spirit and how we can hear our intuition if we choose to, right? And so I know that that is not a normal definition of Black privilege, but that is my definition of it. And
That's the highest privilege.
yes, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is my definition.
I love that definition.
I love the energy of Yemaya that continues to come up throughout this conversation. When I met my partner's mom, one of the first things she said to me was that I reminded her of, and she calls her Yemaya. She's from Argentina. And I didn't know who that was. And I was like, what? Who is that? And then I was told it's just a black mermaid, just, right? Not as like a, but just like it's, you know, but she would say it over and over again at these like moments where, and the last time she said it, where I decided I was going to do some research, we were in Italy, and she was just like, so like, this is who you remind me of, and you embody this. And she was just like, you need to look into this.
Yeah.
And she's deeply connected to spirit.
Yeah.
And a really beautiful person. And ever since then, all the signs continue to come up. And so for a while I had the shells, I had 5 shells in my hair, for Oshun, I believe, in my hair. Yeah. And I wore them like religiously until I started to do my hair myself. And then it just became too daunting to put them in every day. But yeah, I'm really honored to be in the presence of someone who channels, you know, and
yes.
beautiful.
Oh, you're gonna love this then if you're connected to Yemaya.
I can't wait to read.
And what has been really, really beautiful is that while this was my love letter to Black women, and like my intention was for Black women to remember who they are, the experience of like, you know, getting all of the many reviews and all of this, it's everyone, like all backgrounds are having the experience of remembering who they are. And it was not like, I had no idea that that's what was going to come out of this. And you know, I've gotten letters from indigenous women. One woman who was Asian was listening to it with her daughter, who the daughter is maybe 8, like very young. It's an intense book, you know, so it was just like, okay, well, if you're listening to it with your daughter, you know, make sure you explain some of the things that are going. But her daughter was obsessed with it, and like was drawing Yemaya, like did this whole painting of her. I put a video of it on my on my page because it was so cute. She was like painting Yemaya, and then her mom's like trying to film it, and she's like don't film me.
Wow.
And so there's just, it's like so many people are feeling that. And to me, and you both will understand this because just where you are. So when I go out and I say that Black women are God, right? Like I go out and I say it like, yes, I'm going to say it to anyone. I feel like Black women are God. And if that's, you know, triggers you in any way, right? Right? But the reality is that we're all God, right? But if you cannot see that Black women or Black trans women are fucking God, then you definitely can't see yourself as divine. You're not going to be able to. And so it's this whole process of not, you know, going into just that love and light and we're all one, you know, because we really are, but you can't just like go there without really knowing everyone is. And so that's why I like go out there and like trigger people.
I love that. Well, if you have not followed Anita on Instagram, you should definitely take a look because there's such
Your Instagram is
beautiful.
powerful.
It's powerful. Again, that word, but you know, powerful can also mean soft and serene and graceful and compassionate. Actually, I do want to hear from you. It seems like you're doing the work your own way in translating it through words and writing, but if there was work for white folks to do and also for BIPOC people to do, what would you call people in to do the work?
Let me see. I mean, for white people, to me, it feels like the work would be listening. So listening, and really, if you do have people of color who are in your life, listen to them. Like, even if you do get triggered and you want to say something back and defend yourself or defend your race, don't, just shut up and listen. and see where that takes you, right? See where that takes you. And for people of color, BIPOC, like the world is your oyster right now. Like stretch, right? Stretch and move into places where you haven't moved before, and honor yourself. Like, allow yourself to, a huge part of honoring yourself is going into your own healing, right? Like, allowing yourself that time to go into your healing, and go to a Reiki practitioner, a sound healer, someone who gives readings, just give yourself that time to really know who you are from the inside out. And I would say those are my two things.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
I can be triggering.
No, we're just letting this all seep in. Yeah. Would that then be your message for the world?
Ooh, my message for the world. Well, that's deep.
Tall order, right?
I know, right? If I'm saying my message for the world, it's just connect to love. Simple and true and powerful. That would be my message. And if you need more work, like even with Shallow Waters, there's a lot of it's like a medicinal story. So you're gonna go on a journey, and you're gonna see what our ancestors went through. So yeah,
And that Black women are God, right?
that Black women are God. and it's really awesome. Like, I think that one of my favorite parts in the book is, which, don't worry, I'm not giving away story, but it's just the way people want to honor, because they know, like, certain people know who Yemaya is, right? And they want to venerate her, and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just like, she doesn't say I'm just a person, really, but that's how she feels. She's like, no, like, this is not, and so to me, it's like that thing of like Yemaya does represent the journey of the Black woman remembering that she's God. So
I cannot wait to read this.
Especially since you're Yemaya.
I'm apparently, yes.
Anita, this was such a pleasure. You really make me feel so expansive, like anything is possible, and your joy and the way that you just are fiery yet compassionate yet.
Thank you.
So much for your words.
Thank you. Thank you.